Welcome to the Pretty Good at Talking podcast. I'm your host, Vince Strawbridge, and today we're joined by my nephew, Silas, who appeared in my book at both the beginning and the end of our Pacific Crest Trail journey. From being dubbed Silent Silas at the age of 10 by our trail angel to becoming an innovative gear designer, crafting ultralight hammocks for our Appalachian Trail adventure, Silas brings a unique perspective to our family's hiking story. We'll talk about his evolution from an energetic kid racing to touch the Canadian border before anyone, to a thoughtful gear craftsman revolutionizing hammock camping. Plus, you'll learn about his memorable struggles on the brutal terrain of Maine, complete with regular cries of longing for his mom's blueberry scones. Join us for a conversation spanning multiple trails, multiple years, and multiple versions of Silas. My book, Pretty Good at Walking, follows our family of 6 as we tackle the Pacific Crest Trail southbound, with Silas joining us for some unforgettable moments along the way. You can find it wherever books are sold.
Yes.
Welcome to the Silas Show. This is Silas. Silas is my nephew. Silas, we've spent a lot of time hiking together. This show, as you know, is a companion podcast to my book, Pretty Good at Walking. The show itself is called Pretty Good at Talking, not because we're good at talking, just because it made sense to name it that. And we're just talking to people who feature in the book or have something to add to the story of the book. And obviously, you show up in the book on 2 separate occasions. So we can talk specifically about those, but I'd be interested to know, do you remember anything? How old were you when you came with us?
I think that was, how old was Georgie? I think I was 11. I was 1 year, I got 1 year younger than Georgie.
So you were 10.
I was 10, yeah.
Yes. Do you remember ever hiking with us before that Pacific Crest Trail?
I do. I remember there was a point when you guys were out in the woods in North Carolina, and you guys didn't have any food for some reason. I don't remember why, but we were supposed to bring you food that was hidden under the seat or something in a bag, and you guys were really excited to see us until you guys realized that there was no food, because we had forgotten to bring it. I also remember that I was very excited to go backpacking until I realized how heavy the backpacks were, and that Dad was just going to carry all of my sister's stuff, and that made me, I was very disappointed about that. So that's all I really remember. I was like, 7 or 8 years old? And
yeah, probably 8 or 9.
8 or 9. And we walked up on your campsite, and you guys were so excited to see us, and was all disappointment.
Well, we were happy you were there. It was just that you didn't have the food we were dreaming of. We'd been rationing all week, which you didn't know, or would have no way of knowing. But we got out there and we were like, wait, this isn't enough food. So we were playing it safe the whole week. And then when you got there, we had hopes of being able to eat, and there was nothing. But it was fun. Now, you were, as I recall, there were some ticks, there were some tears, there was 7-mile return to the car, and it wasn't all that fun, as I recall. So why were you excited, or were you excited? How did you react when your dad told you that you'd be coming for the beginning of our Pacific Crest Trail hike?
So initially, when he told me that, I was pretty excited because to me, your guys' family was always wherever you guys were, it was always fun. So I was like, if they're starting a hike and they're doing it together, I get to be with my cousins and my uncle and aunt. It sounds like a blast.
So you were excited?
I was really pumped. Dad and I walked around the neighborhood with backpacks on, looking probably very weird because we just put like heavy stuff in the backpacks and walked around. They're probably they're probably training over in Florida, so we should do something similar.
Yeah, and you live in
Colorado. So the altitude was one thing, and snow, that was very normal. That might not have been normal.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool, Sci Guy. So you guys came out, you were 10 years old, you showed up, you spent the night before we got there, didn't you? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. There was, we went to like this, we bought maps at a wilderness store, and I bought this little collapsible day pack thing that folded up into a ball. That was like the highlight of the trip for me up to that point. I was like, I got to buy this backpack, and I thought it was like the coolest thing in the world. it was just fun to drive up to Washington. That was a blast. We did it in Dad's tiny little car, which just a little sedan, fun little
Yeah.
road.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I remember that. I remember showing up and seeing you guys, and took a ride in that van with that guy. We drove up. His name was John Smith. We drove all the way up to the top of Hart's Pass, and we just took off
Yeah.
from there. You hiked with us. So did you like hiking and backpacking before that? Was that something that was on your radar?
Well, not really. Kind of. My only exposure to it was with you guys. Like whenever we went hiking, it was always with your family or on family trips, and I loved it. Like I was always pumped to go hiking, but it wasn't like if you had said like top 10 favorite things, hiking might have figured in there, but I was definitely not thinking of multi-day backpacking when I was.
Yeah. Yeah. But you kind of get into everything you get into.
It was a blast. I loved it. I loved it. It was, yeah. I had a tiny little digital camera, and I took pictures of everything. I was like messing around with the settings. Like they have like an ultra vivid setting, and it made everything like really weird colors. And so I was like, "This is so cool!" Or like fisheye. It was like just messing.
I remember that. I have all those in my Google Photos folder still. All of your pictures. There are a lot of them of Maple. Maple features pretty heavily.
I can't believe we brought her on that trip. She's really just like she's really more of a cat than a dog. She's so like, she's supposed to be like this. She's a miniature poodle, but she acts much more like a very sad and depressed cat than a dog. She just mopes around the place and doesn't like humans or other dogs or anything.
You know, it was before, that may have been after the trip, because she experienced the highlight of her entire lifetime hiking in the Cascades.
All downhill from there. Dad also broke her shoulder by accident, so that might have had something to do with it.
Yeah, it took a turn from then. Yeah. So what do you remember from that initial phase of hiking? Because that's a hard thing. Like that's the hardest part for us, was getting acclimated to all of that. And it was heavy, slushy snow in Washington. And it's not an easy part of it when you sort of start up out of the gate. Of course, you guys had the luxury of getting to go home. We were sort of stuck there. But
yeah, that really helped. Going home after 5 days, it didn't have like the sense of we have to do this for months on end. Certainly, coming from Colorado, it was a lot easier. Probably. Like snow wasn't that bad, and it wasn't as cold as a Colorado winter and whatnot. So that wasn't terribly bad. It was just really wet, is what I mostly remember, and hilly.
Yeah, it was a lot up and down for sure, right out of the gate. I remember of all the people that were represented from our family, you're the only one that got a nickname right out of the gate. Do you remember it? And I'll give you a hint. It was the guy that drove us that called you something.
Was that Silent Silas?
That was Silent Silas, yeah. And he was being facetious. Because you were a very precocious young man. Not anymore. You're mellow. You're mellow and old, deep voice.
Old.
I mean, for the people just listening, Silas has a giant full beard. What age are you now?
17.
17. Just giant grizzly beard.
Most of it's neck beard.
You kind of like to flaunt the neck beard?
Yeah, I leave it and then just kind of wax the other one, wax it onto a kind of point.
Okay. So was you became something of a gearhead after this? Was it immediately following this trip that you got into your gear development and knowledge?
Well, so I've always kind of been like interested in like little gadgets and stuff, like the what do you call it? The little backpack that I bought in Washington and whatnot. But I really got interested when I was really into hammocks for a while. And hammocks are just like, there's really like, if you go to like a REI or whatnot, they really just have new hammocks and whatnot. And I've always been like fascinated with like how stuff is made and like how the weight impacts it, and like how can you minimize the weight? How the engineering works? Like what goes into this backpack to get the kind of result that you want. And so I was at REI and other such stores, and they had they just had Inu hammocks, which are fun and colorful, but they cost a fortune and they weigh a ton. And there was no real other mainstream alternative. So at that point I kind of did some research into like DIY stuff and was just curious, like, how can I get?
So you made your own hammocks?
I did. It was, I went on Ripstop by the Roll, on your suggestion, like this, you can buy like ultralight hiking materials like, Dyneema fabric and other stuff. And I ended up buying like this, can't remember if it was I think it was nylon fabric that, very light per ounce and was sorry, not per ounce, per yard, and was very light and breathable and and then I bought some very heavy duty thread and used our industrials, like ended up getting an industrial sewing machine around this time. So like I was just messing around and sewing up different hammock sizes just to kind of experiment with it. And then at the same time, I'd always been fascinated by this kind of rope that they make out of Dyneema. It's like it's a polythate that they make from they basically stir this big vat and like pull out strings, and the strings they pull out are this Dyneema stuff. And like I did like this, I researched all the history of it and like how it was developed by this Dutch guy, or maybe it was a Dutch. It was Northern Europe certainly, and the whole history behind it. And so I paired that with like some very thin, very, very thin, probably about like, I don't know what the technical term is. Much like it looked like twine, and it could hold 700 pounds. Pairing those up, and then I found some like really cool DIY hammock websites where you could buy titanium fasteners and stuff. And so I got really excited about this whole like ultra lightweight hammock camping sector, but it more stemmed from a love of just like gear and tech in general.
Yeah. Do you remember if I asked you to make us hammocks first, or were you already making hammocks and offered? I don't remember.
I think what happened was we were talking about hiking, and I asked if you guys had ever considered hammock camping, and you said no. And like I kind of pitched you hammock camping in a couple words, kind of like what I just did. But like traditionally, you have like all these heavy meshes and these heavy hammocks, and like you really just know about Inu and maybe some other brands. But if you make it yourself and you use this Dyneema and you use this fabric I found online and these titanium fasteners, you can really make it about as light as a tent, and you have all these advantages with like tarps and everything. And you asked if I could make it, and so I went and I bought all this mesh and stuff and all these waterproof and non-waterproof and breathable and non-breathable fabrics, and just started experimenting. Like I remember rolling about in our hallway and like putting a rock on a tape measure and running up and like making a line, doing it on both sides. And I made tarps that like the amount of glue I used to like seal the seams. It's hilarious. I still use the tarp, but it's hilarious. And I was trying to figure out how to do bug nets that minimize the amount of material. What I realized was if you form fit them to the hammock, if the hammock sags at all, you're ripping your bug net. And so I went through like 2 or 3 bug nets when I was like trying to form fit them to the hammock, and like they were really hard to get into and kept ripping. And so I eventually realized that it was just the best shape is like a funnel shape, straight down funnel shape in terms of access. And it's so light per yard that you're really adding nothing. And
yeah,
there was a company I found online who did all the sewing and stuff for you, because sewing mesh is no fun. They did all the sewing for you, and it was about as cheap as the materials themselves.
Do you remember how heavy your hammocks were?
So
I do.
Okay, I'm trying to think. So most hammocks, most ultralight hammocks are very short, about 9 feet, I'm pretty sure. And I always hated those kinds of hammocks because you really have to lay. They really limit the way you can lay, and they really don't have much material on the sides. And so like you can't, if you wanted to like curl, like if you wanted the things to like come over you while you slept, or like put your arms out while you were leaning back in it, or even like sit in the hammock and have your back go up the side of it, you can't do it in traditional ultralight hammocks like the Inu Super Sub 6. And like those, like you just have a limit. They just, because the fabric is so heavy, they just, even the ultralight fabric, they just limit the amount of stuff you can do. So I think I went 14 feet on the hammocks I made for you guys, and 3 feet wide. So
Yeah, and they could sleep diagonally.
yeah, that
And
was what I was hoping for. Because that was what was really cool about them. So they were probably slightly heavier than if I had done the same dimensions as the traditional ultralight hammocks, but
yeah.
maybe around, I want to say, I don't remember the exact
Well, we
ounceage.
ended up using the Gossamer Gear tarps that we already had. And so it
Well,
was your hammock, your bug net, your hardware, your everything. And then when we added in the tarps, everything was like 19 ounces all in.
which is probably heavier than a two-person tent getting split. It was, in my opinion, hammocks are just so much more comfortable. And
Well,
like,
yeah. And the best thing, well, we didn't use them until we went on the Appalachian Trail, but on the Appalachian Trail, they stayed drier. That was the
yeah,
big deal.
oh yeah, it was like, because like the tents are only single walled, and it's like you got the condensation and the
Hmm.
rain like vying for entry. Where as
Hmm.
an you're you don't ever have to touch the tarp at all, and even if the tarp's soaking wet, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So that worked out really well. That was a good addition to our arsenal for that Appalachian Trail trip. But I'm surprised what you remember about the Pacific Crest Trail. Do you remember crossing paths with anybody? You remember anybody in particular, any characters that we met at the border on the way to the border? Or
I
do you,
remember I remember Mad Max, was it?
yeah,
Uh
yeah, it was Mad
he was
Max.
doing, he was crazy. He was annoyed that he wanted to make he was annoyed that our little dog was doing the same trail that he was doing because it didn't make him look as tough. And then he told us about like this endurance biking race he did where his bike was falling apart as he was climbing up this mudslide.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah,
I remember that Henry and I raced to touch the monument first, and
yeah. Who got
that
there first?
I don't remember. I really don't remember. I think Henry might have gotten there first.
Yeah.
Maybe
Do you
I did.
remember do you remember him losing his tooth?
Yes, he threw it into Canada,
Yeah.
and and then I remember camping at, and I can never remember the name of that lake, Hudson, Houston,
Hmm.
Hopkins,
Probably Hudson. Hopkins
Hopkins
Lake.
Lake. And there was a guy, and Junie jumped in, which I was, and we did too, but I was very impressed with Junie's eagerness to get in the very, very cold water.
Yeah, yeah. And you were violating a lot of leave no trace principles while you were there with constructing edifices along the way. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that specifically, but I've always thought,
You were making you were making snowmen at the top of every pass when you would wait for us. Do you remember that? I'm sure that actually is not a violation of any principle since it's melting, but it was pretty funny because I was like, "Yep, they've been here."
I do remember though that walking in all that snow gave me really bad blisters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Your feet were about to slide off.
Yes.
It was pretty bad. So in the book, there's a scene that I had to ask you if I was allowed to include because I wasn't sure if you would want to be seen in a more favorable light, but it really was mostly a negative about us, me and Henry, and our bad attitudes. But I asked you if I could put that scene in there. Do you remember reading it for the first time?
I do. I didn't. I had a foggy memory of it, but I didn't remember how. I didn't remember a lot of the details. I was kind of like,
Did you have
sorry.
a moment now that we're way past that moment and you're a far more mature man, grown man. Do you look back on that? Do you remember the moment when you knew you were in trouble? When you're like, "Oh no, I've soiled the bag. I'm gonna be in trouble here."
I do. I do. I don't. I don't remember anything except you. I remember you yelling at me, like, "Lance, Lance," and I was like, I was very nervous because you did not. I was like, what did I do?
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, so we dropped you at the car and you and your dad headed home. Were you able to, were you, I don't remember if we did a good job of keeping people updated about what we were doing all along the way, but then you joined us again at the end.
Yeah.
And you brought Maple.
We did again?
Yeah, you brought Maple for the finish too.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. Well, it was only 40 miles.
Yeah, we only 40 miles. But that was really fun because we stopped at it was all like it was like landscape was all completely different, which was really
Yeah.
really cool. It was probably more. There's probably parts of Colorado that are a lot more like that, but at least the parts that I'm familiar with are not that kind of deserty, rambly kind of
Yeah.
terrain. I really enjoyed it, and um, I do remember we stopped somewhere in this little town right before the border, and we got milkshakes, and that was a blast.
Yes. That was a nice stop for sure. I don't remember who. Oh, I think it was before you, but somebody had taught us, a friend of mine had taught us to put water on this little sort of lichen on the rocks and it would turn bright green. It was really cool, wasn't it?
I was there. I was there for that. That was awesome. I
Mhm.
wasn't there for the friend telling you about that, but I was there when you were testing it out for
Yeah.
the first time.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, that was fun. So you came home pretty excited to say that you'd done the border hike,
Yeah, and
as I
we got to
recall.
drive with you guys, which was
Mhm.
a blast.
Yeah, that was cool. I guess my dad brought the car to you and then you guys drove to us. Must have been the case.
I'm trying to remember. No, I don't. Maybe I think you're right. Yeah, I don't remember all the
Yeah.
details, but I just remember driving back with you guys. Was a blast. Like laying on top of all the backpacks in the very back of the car.
Yeah. With a seatbelt on, I'm sure.
Of course, of course.
But you've hiked every single trail with us, on
We have
every single trail with us.
bits of pieces.
Bits and pieces, yeah. We did the Florida Trail hike, which, if anybody is interested, they should go to YouTube and look for Silent Silas Swamp Stomper on YouTube. It's a great video. Silas brought his GoPro and filmed the whole time, and he gave a running narrative of his hike through the Florida swamp, and it's pretty awesome.
It pretty shows off the talkative nature
The talkative nature, yeah. But the
of
highlight of that trip for me, was that limestone cave that we walked past, and that alligator was hissing and jumping toward us. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. I remember going to some place called the Black Lagoon, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember everything was wet, and we saw.
Yep. Saw a couple of moccasin. So let me see if I can help you remember that alligator. It was at night. It was at night we decided to walk past because we were without water. So we started walking in the dark and we came to these palm fronds and then we
Huh?
had to go past. And I think Aiden went first and it hissed and like hissed at her. And so she was on the other side, I think. Maybe it was her, maybe it was you that went first. I don't know. She was her because you were on the backside with me and Blake, and we had to decide, like, you had to take a run at it, and everybody was nervous.
I do
You
remember
can see
that.
it in the video. It's in the video.
I remember now that you remind me of the darkness and all that. That was fun.
Yeah.
It was it was pretty scary with the gator because didn't we do like 30 33 miles that day or something?
I think we did a lot. Yeah, we did a lot of miles that day.
And at the end was the alligator and the we didn't have any
Yeah.
water.
No, and that's why we did those big miles. So you also came on the Continental Divide Trail.
That one you guys came to us. Oh no, but then we
That's
went
true.
we went to Montana as well.
Oh, that's right. We saw you briefly in Montana.
Yeah, I
Oh,
hiked it.
you were there on that horrible day in Montana.
Yeah, and
I don't remember, we were between two towns. It was Lincoln and somewhere else, and it was only a 14-mile day, and it started sunny. We started in the sun. We
yeah,
got to the car. Everybody had just shorts and rain jackets, and thankfully, we brought our umbrellas. You didn't, but you were all suited up, I think. And then we got to the top, and the wind started blowing, and we got sleet and hail blowing
all along that
sideways.
ridge.
That's right. Yeah.
And like the trail was kind of wet and rivery and whatnot.
Yeah, it was nasty. So you did that, and then you joined us again in Colorado when we came and met you. And I guess you must have hiked with us for 3 days during that one.
3 days. That was on the Continental Divide Trail. I came for all the extreme days because all three of those days were pretty crazy. Maybe the last one was no, yeah, all three of them were pretty crazy.
What happened?
Apparently, there was like a huge, I don't know if it was like a flash wind or a tornado or what, but for like miles and miles, as far as you could see, it was all the trees were falling over. So we were walking like 13 feet above the ground on top of the trees. And like, we could not find a trail at all. Like trying to use like gut hooks or far out or whatever it is to like figure out where the trail might be. But it was like you had like the boulders that were sticking up kind of like cliffs, and the trees were just stacked up like Lincoln logs all over the place. Like we were like, you and Henry were trying to find a way, but it was it was wild. Apparently, then the Forest Service had like marked it as closed or whatnot, and then we
Impassable, I
finally
think they said.
impassable. That's what it was. But when we finally got through, then it started snowing, and we were walking through like over a Arapahoe South Arapahoe Pass and like 4 feet of snow. And like you literally have to like clear away. Not because it was packed, and then you got the snowfall on top of it. So
Yeah.
it probably wasn't 4 feet. Maybe it was like 1 foot and then a foot and a half or 2 feet of packed fresh snow.
Powder.
It was
Yeah, that was miserable.
And then we got to the top, and there was like, I think we looked up the weather report afterwards, and there was like 80-mile-an-hour winds with and like everything was melting up there, and there was like little rivers going through the rocks. And didn't Henry get hypothermia or something?
He did, yeah. Going up over the top. And then we
Yeah,
got down to the bottom, and it was only you and me that didn't want to leave.
yeah. We took a vote, and I was like, I'm just here for 3 days. Like, let's keep going. And I was like,
They outvoted us.
they did. They were like, we want to go down to town. But that was fun though. I'm so surprised that we got a hitchhike out of there.
That was amazing. Yeah, up a 30-mile dirt road, and it was the only two cars.
Yeah, and down in Netherlands, right?
Nederland, Netherland. I don't know what they call it. Something like that. And then the next day we went up over Devil's Thumb, but we saw a moose up there at
Yeah,
lunch. I don't know if you remember that.
yeah. I went the back way, and there was you could see because we were in this valley, and you could see up on the ridge. You could see Devil's Thumb just poking up, the other side of
Uh-huh.
Devil's Thumb poking up, and there was a moose, right?
Yeah, there was a moose. And you've been back there since, right? That same hike?
Yeah, because I loved we started where we bailed, and then
Yeah.
hiked just a little bit in. We just hiked to the lake, which was 7 or 8 miles, because it was with just some friends over the weekend, and then we hiked in there and just. And we did a day hike out to the top of a ridge the next day. The best part of that trip was for sure James Peak, like 13,500, almost 14,000 feet, panoramic views, all directions.
It was pretty. Yeah, I remember though, like we were looking for a place to camp. We were shooting to get over the top of James Peak, and we didn't make it, and we stopped right before it. And the place we stopped, it was extremely windy, but there was this one little bowl that was cut out where we were able to put our tents and keep out of the wind. But that was
Awesome.
high. We were up
Yeah.
above 12,000 or something. It was crazy.
George has a great picture of that one.
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
The little tents and the
Hey,
sun, because the sunset, you could see the sunset, and the sunset was like tinging the tents. Or that was a really cool spot.
yeah, that was neat. Then we came over James Peak and then went down to ice cream the next day down those forest roads
Yeah,
in Empire, I think it's called.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Walking through all that because there was a fire on the other side of the Highway 40. There was a fire closure that was closing the trail, so we had to go down and around.
Really?
Yeah, we had to go down to Empire, cross 70 at a different spot, and then go up over Loveland Pass is the way we navigated that fire.
Yeah. Were you guys like hiking through like above the resort up there?
Yeah, and there was some neighborhood that had a trail drawn through it, but it was a private neighborhood. We managed to get through there. Kind of the back way.
I
But that's the
remember.
way the CDT is. You can
I
kind of
remember
take
hearing
your
like
own way.
I remember hearing you guys just like planning at our house. Like you were like, well, we could go. You guys were thinking about doing Berthoud Pass, but then you were like, what? What do you think if we could like somehow like sneak through the tunnel? Because like the Eisenhower, because you like we don't want to take June over Berthoud Pass, and then you're like, yeah, what if we did the tunnel? And we were like looking it out, and they're like, you can get arrested for going through the tunnel, and it was like, it was like a little walkway with a railing. That would have been so fun.
I know. I saw pictures of people walking it, but it was obviously a long time ago, probably pre 9/11.
Probably.
Yeah. So we weren't able to do that, unfortunately. Instead, we did the Loveland. But you probably did some of that stuff with us around the Breckenridge stuff, or was that not you?
No,
You might have only had the 3 days.
I only had the 3 days, and then everyone else went up for a week, and we had a wedding or something.
Yeah. And each time that you came out to hike with us, you were one of the stronger hikers. You'd kind of be up in the front with Henry and Aiden and all of them.
Except for the last time.
Do you remember the last time? The last time being the Appalachian Trail when you hiked with us.
Yeah.
On that one.
That was pretty tough.
Hold on, wait, before you do that, was it fun coming out and seeing all of your tents or your hammocks in action?
Oh, I was so happy. Like, I came out and I'd spent like weeks and weeks and weeks like sewing and ordering, and like I got to see all the pieces come in, and I packaged them up and tried to like, it wasn't terribly, like, I was pretty good at sewing, but like I wasn't getting like the lines like machine straight kind of thing. It was like I had to work through and I had to throw away some stuff, but I finally got what I gave you guys. I finally packaged them up, and I was super excited to see how they worked out, and they worked great.
They did work great, yeah. And you made me a video of how to set them up and everything, so that was good too, which is also available on our YouTube channel. If somebody wants to check it out. We got a lot of Silas on there. Silent Silas Swamp Stomper, and I can't remember what we called the hammock one, but there was one where you gave us instruction about how to set up the hammock.
I don't remember the name either. But then didn't you have me write up the Instagram?
Yeah. That's right. So if anybody wants, listen, what happened, I don't know if you know this, but because I don't check it. Like I run them about a week after, when we're on trail, I type them and they go out about a week or 2 weeks after the actual day, because you can't really keep up without all the coverage. So I load them up in town. Well, we got a couple of weeks later and I came into town and yours had just posted all 3 of your days that you hiked with us and took over the Instagram account. And it was a unanimous vote that I get fired from writing the daily updates, and it would be all Silas. They were like, we want Silas. We want more Silas. And unfortunately, that was their last shot at the Silas. But there are 3 days from our CDT hike. If you scroll backward on Instagram, you can find the Silas taking over the days. No, they were very good, very descriptive. I remember calling your dad and saying, he said, yeah, I'm trying to get Silas to clean it up here. He likes to use really superlative words and really, really, really exaggerated language. And I was like, no, let him loose. Let him cut loose.
There was
more.
The writing curriculum I was doing at the time was like trying to incentivize you to use vocab words and all that. So I was like, how many of these vocab words can I sneak in here?
That's really great. Oh, so did you got to use it as a homework assignment?
No.
That's unfortunate.
It was just the way I was thinking. Yeah. But
yeah.
How old was I? I was like, because I was 2020, right? 20. So I would have been like 12.
So we did a couple little trips in between there. Like you did the Florida one. We did couple in North Carolina. You started to getting and collecting gear, and then when you came out to the AT, you had a backpack that wasn't working for me. Do you remember that? You probably don't.
I do. It was like you had to get my water bottle for everything every time.
I was so mad. I was really impatient. I wanted to. We all wanted to finish the trail. We were so done with it. We were like, let's finish the AT and be done. This is annoying. And for anyone who's hiked the AT, especially northbound, they would know Silas came to visit us on the AT. And when he came the last day of Vermont. So he joined us the first day of New Hampshire, which is where the trail gets as tough as it possibly can be. And he was going to hike 300 miles with us. And we had been hiking forever. And unlike when he joined us on the Continental Divide Trail, when June had been sick and anemic, we didn't know it at the time, but June was anemic, so she was easy to keep up with. Silas came and joined us on a trip where we were all like running like thoroughbreds, and he had to just start fresh on the worst section of the whole Appalachian Trail and try to keep up.
It was,
Go ahead, Silas.
wasn't it the last day of New Hampshire, first day of Maine, though?
Was it?
Yeah, I think so. Because I didn't,
You're right. Yeah, all you did was Maine with us, but the first sections of Maine are very difficult. No, you're totally right because you had to do Mahoosic Notch with us
yeah, so like
and Mahoosic Arm.
right out of the music knock,
You're
that was
right. You're right.
like,
So you.
but because I did the end of the New Hampshire, like the end of the Whites up through,
Mhm.
but up to the 100 Mile Wilderness, it's really tough. Like
Yeah, that's right.
100 Mile Wilderness has two little hills, and those are fine,
Yeah,
and those are kind of hard, but not that bad at all. But
the 100 Mile Wilderness was pretty great. Like
I love,
there's roots and rocks and stuff, but we did a couple big 30-mile days in there.
yeah, that was a blast.
Yeah, but before that was very difficult.
Yeah, I was not prepared for it, especially like I had done a little bit of like walking around town with backpack with I don't know what in it, and but like time constraints are like you can't go. It's hard to go hiking for 8 hours in a day just
Mhm.
around like a city like or whatever. So, I came in there like with absolutely no base fitness and was just like dying. Like I remember like the first day I get there and you guys are all just like powering up this huge this very large it was a very large climb all day, or it felt like it. And I just remember like thinking like why did I think this was a good idea? Like why did I sign up for 3 miles? And then like by day like 5 so you guys had someone else hiking with you guys and they just quit and I was like did not my morale. I was like they just quit. But I did get there.
Yes, that's true. We were sending. That's right. It was Gwen, right? Gwen went home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I was
that was a good gain because I was hiking. I was impatient. I was wanting to be done, and during the day we would stop probably at least two times an hour, and we'd have to stop for a minute or two while you drank your water because I had to pull it out of or somebody had to pull it out of your pocket, and you were always in the back. Like if you're in the front, it's no big deal, but you're in the back. So I'd pull it out of your pocket. We'd have to stop and wait. You'd drink it for 1 or 2 minutes. And then I remember doing the math in my head and I was like, Silas is costing us 3 miles a day. We were getting 3 more miles a day. And I was so irritable and annoyed. Everybody was annoyed at that section. It was terrible. And you were crying all day long. Like, I don't know how, you're 13 years old, but there's no embarrassment. And when you start in the mountains of Maine, there's no embarrassment crying all day long. But I was like, what's wrong, Silas? And you'd be like, I'm homesick. And I was like, what do you miss most? And you were like, the phrase that we still say when we're hiking and we're annoyed. You were like, I miss Mom's blueberry scones. So we're all like, whenever anybody's like irritable or annoyed now in hiking, we're just like, oh, blueberry scones.
yeah, that's exactly right. We'd be going up the hill and I'd be thinking like, man, like mom's probably at home. It's summer. No one's at school. Mom's probably like making scones this morning. And then there's bacon. And I was like, I remember like thinking of like whenever I was hiking next to like Georgie or Aiden, I'd be like, guys, what is your favorite meal? Like, what's your favorite? I was so sick of tuna. And I only had it for like 3 or 4 days, and they were all like, it was so funny.
Oh, that was great. And you desperately wanted to get home going into the 100 mile.
But no, well, kind of. But 100 Mile Wilderness, I was just Mahoosic Notch. I enjoyed until we got out of it, and then we had to go up it. But then we got to a hostel, and that was the highlight of
Okay.
the first half. And I was like, after we got to was it Shaw's? Then
Shaw's Hiker Hostel, yeah.
right before the 100 Mile Wilderness, then I was like, I was I kind of was kind of like a restart, and I was like, everyone said the 100 Mile Wilderness is easy and fun. I think that was, and I had like 5 or 6 days of hiking under my belt, so
Yeah.
that was the best part of the trip. But I feel like the hills weren't that bad, and the fitness wasn't that bad, but it was the hills and the fitness, and then the bugs. In Colorado, at least where I am, there's very few mosquitoes, but right there, everything, it was, I guess we were in the right season, like June, early June or maybe mid June, and the mosquitoes would just eat you alive. You'd look down at your legs and there'd be like 5 or 6 of them on there. And so I was slapping, and I was just getting so mad at the bugs, and it was like I think if there hadn't been bugs, I would have been like so much happier and more and less
Yeah.
despondent.
Yeah. Well, I thought there was some maturation in the side guy because we got to the top of Katahdin and you let June touch it first rather than beating her to the monument.
I don't remember that. I just remember like I just remember doing like a lot of. I remember being like really excited to get as much mileage done as we could going into Katahdin, and like how soon can we, how quick can we do the 100-mile wilderness and get to the top of
Uh-huh.
Katahdin and then get back to that amazing hostel.
Yes, you had fun at the hostel. Were you with us when Henry's hammock snapped in the night and he fell on the
Yeah.
ground?
Yes, I was.
I think you were.
I think
Yeah, that was
I'm
crazy.
not 100% sure, but
Do
I
you have
do.
any out of all of those trails and stuff, do you have any things that are just highlights from it?
I think the 100-mile wilderness was actually a pretty big highlight. Like it was just compared to the last part, it was just like it was just fun walking on just huge trees and really grassy and leafy and rooty, and it was just fun to. It was fun. It was two very very small hills, and then at the end, Katahdin was a blast because it didn't feel hard at all because you were going to the top of the highest point in Maine and the end of the trail. That was a blast. I think that last from Shaw's to Katahdin was definitely a highlight. I loved I loved Hopkins Lake. I thought that was a blast. The
Yeah.
views down towards Hopkins Lake on the Pacific Crest Trail. I really enjoyed the last little bit in California was fun. I don't remember that much of it. I remember loving cowboy camping under the stars and
Yeah.
shooting
Yeah, for sure.
stars, and like everything it wasn't wet, and like because up in Washington, like everyone was calling it like the washing machine or whatever. Like we
Uh-huh.
did because like the leaves would all come over and you'd have to be walking through them, but it was all dry and fun and kind of like it was fun. But then I think my favorite probably was above all was Colorado. I just loved climbing over the logs was a blast, and then James Peak was beautiful, and
Yeah.
I know you. I remember that you were kind of annoyed at the logs because it was really messing with the miles. Like you can't not get what did we do, like three or 4 miles that day? That hour, that section.
Hmm.
Instead, and then we had to try to get all the miles in that evening.
Yeah, we were trying to meet my parents down on Winter Park on the other side because they were coming out to visit. And so I had 2.5 days to meet them on that following day and take a day and a half off down at Winter Park. But they came and had to get us that night, run us all the way around to Winter Park, and run us all the way back. So then we ended up out there in the woods 2 more days. So it was just kind of messing with schedule.
Yeah.
I get irritable when it messes with schedule. Speaking of irritable, how was it interacting with your cousins the whole time? Was that like,
No, I loved it. You guys have the funnest. You guys are the funnest to be around. Like whenever like, on family trips and whatnot, it's always like, what's Uncle Vince and his family doing? And of course, other cousins. There's a ton of them, but you guys were usually the locus of the fun when it came to hiking and like it
who
got
did you who did you hike with the most when you were with
probably
us?
Georgie, Georgie in Maine. I hiked with Henry in Washington. I don't remember about Colorado or I remember a couple conversations with Georgie and Junie and Aiden in maybe Henry in California. But I don't know. Yeah, but Georgie
Yeah.
was very encouraging when I was just despondent in Maine.
Yeah, no kidding. You had yeah, that 300 mile, you were a long way away. Did you ever think, I can't believe my dad let me do this? He shouldn't have let me do this.
I probably thought something like that. I was also thinking, I thought a lot like, what in the world was I thinking when I decided to do this? And then I also thought that you guys were insanely impressive for being able to do this the whole time. Cause I was like, they just get to, like, hiking's fun. They just get to have fun the whole time. But it was actually like, I was actually like, this is tough. And then, cause like you're literally like, climbing up ladders that are like bolted into the rocks and like, they don't do switchbacks at all. Like I always kind of get like, and like Colorado and just hikes in general, I would always get kind of annoyed with switchbacks. Like, what are they doing? Like, why can't they just go straight up? Like, and then in Maine, they're like, we don't. Apparently, the Appalachian Trail does not do very many switchbacks, and like they're just like, we can bend some rebar into steps up here and up and down and up and down, and it was like a pretty. It felt like to me a pretty relentless pace. I was kind of like, I remember saying to Aiden or Georgie at one point, I was like, we've been hiking for 5 days, and I still have 5 days more. I'm only halfway through. I'm gonna have to do this for another whole 5 days. And it was so funny. And then
keep going.
not for like what, 2 months or whatever.
3.5 months. Yeah,
3.5 months. I'm like, it's easy for you guys. You guys are used to this.
well, that's great. And then, so this Christmas, you came down with no expectation of hiking.
Yeah, didn't bring anything. Just came down with the family. Expected to go back and have Christmas in Denver after we finished up in Florida.
And then what happened?
Apparently, you guys were going on a hike, and you said you guys were all packing up on the day we were leaving, and you're like, I'm like, it's such a bummer that I've always it's too bad that I don't know, maybe I was saying like, that sounds so much fun, I wish we could do it or something like that, and you're like, you should come with us, you should totally come. And I'm like, really? I'm like, I totally do that. And you're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. And then I learned like Georgie goes, he says that to everyone, and so he's not serious, he didn't mean that, but you were, after the initial decision, you were all in, and I bought a plane ticket home from Atlanta, and we found, like, scrounged together some clothes and said goodbye to mom and dad and just hopped in the car with you guys, and we drove off. It was a blast, like, a lot at first, but I really enjoyed it, but it was very wet. Very, very wet.
It rained the whole time, and you didn't have a sleeping bag.
No, oh, no, yeah. I didn't have a sleeping bag. I had 2 little, like, down quilts, and they were like, the first night I had like a strategy. I kept one like under the main quilt and the other on top of it, like one would like pull up towards my chin and the other I just let cover like my torso and legs. And that one, I don't know if we set up the tent wrong or if just hammocks are in so much better. Like I was just a hammock camping area, but our tent filled up with a huge puddle of water at the end of it, and I'm pretty sure it was the way we did it because I think the water was coming into like a mesh at the bottom, and I soaked one whole sleeping bag that day, and there was no chance to dry it. And then the next night, I soaked the other sleeping bag. But so I was just like, I was like a little daunted, but this one was a lot. Even though it was the Appalachian Trail style stuff, I was a lot more fit because I've been doing I'm just cross country training, and it was just a blast because it was
you even took off and did a run, didn't you, during the middle of it?
It was with you guys, and it was at Christmas time, and the best part was Fresh Grounds. He made food for us everywhere. How 4 meals? Yeah,
it was 4 meals in like 3 days. It was
and
crazy.
He made like such good bacon, like all you can eat bacon and chili and hot dogs and soup and eggs blueberry
you can
cake.
see why that's part of why we were bummed when we ran into you on the Appalachian Trail. We had our last meal with him on the Appalachian Trail the day before you came. So part of the reason we went to that, they do an end of year hike on the Foothills Trail. They call it end of days because it's the end of the year of hiking. So they do it in the last days of that year. And so Fresh Ground goes up and feeds all the hikers. And it's mostly, I don't know if you caught that from the conversation, but it's mostly people preparing to do an Appalachian Trail hike.
Yeah.
So and we were just piggybacking on that.
Yeah, it was really fun because everyone was like connected to the hiking community, and they were like, oh, we're gonna go around and be doing the Florida Trail in a couple weeks, and they were all like, oh, you guys did the Triple Crown, and when you guys told them about a little bit of your story, and it was just and the food was amazing, and it was just a blast, and there was a fire, just a blast to like have that interspersed among the
Yeah. So you have a couple of future plans. The one I know about is that you're going to manufacture these hammocks that are such an excellent design. I remember a poet at the Shaw Hiker Hostel was
yeah.
really enamored with it. He wanted to buy one off of you, didn't he?
Yeah, and he wanted to give me one of his bug nets as like a design thing, and I to this day I really regret not taking him up on the offer. But I seriously do. And I got home and I was like, why the heck did I not take him up on that offer? And like, but like because because it was a really unique mesh
Yeah.
net that he thought would be useful. But yeah, he would.
Well, I emailed I emailed Gusberg here recently and told them that they should think about inviting you into their design team for a hammock. I think they could put together a really nice hammock. I think the challenge with hammock and hammock camping is that it really is only suited to very few trails. The Appalachian Trail is one of the very few trails that you can actually hammock camp the whole way.
And I mean, like, I feel like you could. I don't know about. I didn't see that much of Washington, but there were definitely spots to do. Maybe the trees were too big, though.
You might be able to. You just have to have a bigger strap for the bigger trees, for sure.
Yeah, and then the Colorado Trail certainly goes above tree line a lot, but pines are great for hammock camping. And I've I've done I've done a lot of hikes in Colorado where I've been able to use my hammock the whole time.
I have thought about that some because, like, I think of it as not being trails as not being friendly for hammock camping, but you have to target flat enough places for a tent. It
Yeah,
seems like you could target places with trees as well. But you get into like the Great Divide Basin, there wouldn't be anything. You get down into New Mexico, there wouldn't be anything. So there's lots of places where, but I guess what you could do in those scenarios is you could carry a tarp that was able to stand like a trekking pole system where you could sleep under your tarp in that
yeah.
scenario.
Because most of the places that you're going to be doing that are going to be deserty and pretty warm. So you
Hmm.
could, and the tent's only there for the possibility of rain and maybe to keep in some body heat. Like
Yeah.
you aren't really you're not gonna be camping in forests where like the ground gets really, really wet and it gets all like it's running together. You're not really gonna be. Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Like you could do like the tarp, the trekking pole tarp for the deserts and the hammock camping for the trees. Because like if you think about it, like before a lot of efforts were made on the trails, like most places weren't really that tent friendly, and you really have to go
Hmm.
out of your way to find those tent friendly spots, quote unquote.
Hmm. Hmm.
But with hammocks, you really have like you can fit a lot of. If you have trees, you can fit a ton of hammocks in an area. Like we had when we were doing
Yeah,
the
you don't even
foothills.
need flat ground. You can do it almost anywhere.
Yeah, when we were doing the foothills trail, for example, the two tents were the hardest part to work around. Like the hammocks could just go
Hmm.
anywhere. Like,
Yeah.
um, but so I
All
think
right.
there's great potential for hammocks.
And you're not going to give away, I know you're not going to give away the design, but there's also something coming from Silas Design Studios that has to do with the sleeping bag. We're not going to give away even the name. It might give too much away, but that's coming for the future as
It
well.
abolishes the traditional dilemma about how to stay warm in a hammock.
Nice. So more to come in that, but also tell us what we can expect from Silas in the future as a distance hiker. I heard some things are sort of in the works there. I don't know if you've told your parents yet. Maybe they won't listen to the show.
I've always thought it would be I've always dreamed of doing at some point but I feel like if I was going to do it, I'd want to do it like unique.
Okay. So what would unique look like?
So maybe like a calendar trip or with the Florida Trail included would be. It
Nice.
sounds a little outrageous, but that would be really cool.
There's a lady right now on making an attempt. She's just left Florida. She's entered Alabama, and her name's Pegleg, and she's attempting a border to border triple. So she's going to go from Key West to Canada, and then she's going to try to do the Continental Divide Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail all in a calendar year.
Well, she's already out of Florida. That's pretty
She's flying. Yeah.
impressive. Like that seems like she could really do it. The real one to do would be nix the Florida Trail, but do the Appalachian Trail and the Great Western
Loop.
Loop. That would be
Oh,
fun.
that's a good idea.
That would be really fun.
Yes. Okay.
Probably realistically more in the realm of daydream. I think that would be like the highlight of my like. That would be
So you're obviously you're a man of many interests. Like you are a small engine repair company that I know you closed up shop recently, or you've minimized your client base, a little bit on that. You're a outdoor gear design. What else? I mean, I know you have a couple other businesses going on. Am I wrong about that?
I taught myself how locksmithing, picking locks, rekeying them, all the pins and whatnot. So I can do that pretty well.
Okay. So you can get into the principal's office and change your test scores, things like that.
Exactly. All the time. And then what else? I work for Dad, who does a lot of tree trimming and Christmas light hanging when he's not doing other stuff. So like
So you have
CPA
kind of
work.
many talents. It's going to be hard to pin you down.
I I I just love it all. It's a blast.
Yeah. So if any gear design company were to pick up the phone and call you right now, like who would be your dream? Would it be Gossamer Gear?
That'd be pretty cool. But like
Who else
I
would
don't
you work for? Like, do you have any others that you're like, yeah, I'd work for them?
I work for a lot of others, like I think tent companies who already know how to do like the tarps and whatnot. I think that would be cool because they already like the broadens out and really completes the range of a tent company. I feel like I don't know, but like some of the bigger like really big like Osprey or something like that. I feel like in general it doesn't fit like the what I'm going for with a really ultralight hammock is kind of it's
You're
less.
looking for something that feels a little more like a cottage industry
Exactly.
operation.
Less traditional and established. Like I mean like Gossamer Gear is already pretty established and whatnot, but something it's not like known for being uber traditional.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent work, Silas. We thank you for your time. I look forward to see, what's to come in the future from you. Maybe we'll have you back on the show when you're ready to announce the calendar border to border triple or some sort of a strange, Great Western Loop plus the Appalachian Trail. I think the last time we were hiking in the Foothills Trail, I mentioned that I might be coming with you, but that was the first day when I felt like I could keep up. By the second day, I decided maybe that would be for you. Or maybe I'll just run support team. I'll run support team for you.
You could bike it.
I'll bike it. Yeah, there you go. No, I'm going to try to keep up. I'm only 52.
Yeah. No, that's
So yeah.
like
You probably
how
want somebody to go slow at first just to help you avoid injury.
yeah, for sure. And like
Okay.
we could totally get up to speed together. That'd be a blast.
All right.
Silent Uncle Vince.
Yeah,
The
I like
that
it.
would
Yeah.
be amazing.
All right, Silas. I'm going to shut off the podcast and we'll get to planning. How about that?
All right, sounds
Sound
good.
good?
Let's do
All
it.
right. Thanks for joining us for this conversation with Silas. From the 10-year-old who helped kick off our PCT journey to the innovator that he has become. It's been amazing to watch my nephew grow through all our trail experiences and life itself. We can't wait to see what adventures and innovations lie ahead for him. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with fellow hiking enthusiasts. And if you want to read more about our family's PCT adventure, including Silas's early trail experiences, check out Pretty Good at Walking. You'll find it's a story about family, perseverance, and the incredible community that make up the Pacific Crest Trail. Until next time, happy trails.